Welcome back. So what fueled the attack on the U.S. Capitol? Our next guest believes she knows. Sarah Miller is with the American Economic Liberty Project and is vice chair of what's called the Freedom from Facebook campaign. She joins us from Washington, D.C. So, Ms. Miller, describe your organization.
Sure. Freedom from Facebook was organized to help push policymakers and antitrust enforcers to break up Facebook, essentially.
Why?
Because Facebook is a monopoly, and the monopolization over the internet is causing a whole range of social challenges, including the ones that we witnessed this week.
Explain that.
You know, we kind of viewed what happened Wednesday as the culmination of, what we see as a poisoned online information ecosystem. So there's two giant corporations, global corporations, that really control large parts of the internet and the way that we exchange information as citizens. So one of them is Facebook and one of them is Google, which obviously owns YouTube. So both of those corporations are oriented around making money. They make their money, their billions and billions of dollars of profit every year from amplifying toxic, engaging types of information, which kind of creates the stew for these sorts of viral conspiracy theories that have kind of captured the imagination now of millions of people.
So in the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, a former Google engineer says that when you type "climate change is" in the space, the next prompt the site gives you is based on what they know about you, what you've searched before, where you live. So if they believe you're a climate change denier, that's the first thing you'll see. And that's part of the problem. Yes,
that's a huge part of the problem. So these platforms are designed to know everything about you and then feed that information back to you to keep you hooked. This is not legitimate or responsible information provision. That's how they operate. And I think it's really important to understand, one, that is the way that they make money. That's why advertisers pay them money. It's because Google and Facebook in particular know everything about you. So advertisers, whether you're a propagandist or a legitimate corporation, can essentially target their advertising in deeply personal, individualized, and, as they believe, effective ways. So that's how those two corporations, have become so incredibly powerful. You have to follow the money to really understand that.
There appears to be bipartisan support for a repeal of Section 230 of the Communications Act, which shields social media companies from lawsuits for what is posted on their sites. Do you support that effort?
Yeah, I think eliminating liability protection for corporations like Facebook and Google in particular is one way to get at those problems. You have to do it carefully because you don't necessarily want to cause other problems in other parts of the internet. But there's no doubt that Facebook and Google are abusing what was intended to be a very different kind of protection in a very different age of the internet. So there's not one silver bullet, and repealing Section 230 isn't a silver bullet, but it's one potential way that you could get at that problem. Do not track lists are another. Simply banning their ability to engage in targeted advertising as a business, is another. These are all steps that Congress and in some cases regulators have the power to embrace.
So I assume you believe that without action, we're going to continue to see a fraying of the social fabric, coming apart as we've never seen before.
I do, and I think there's two reasons for that. One is what we saw this week. Over the last 4 or 6 years, we've really seen this alternate reality constructed that's been fueled in particular by Facebook and Google, but also traditional media and cable news and other internet platforms. That's one problem. The other problem is that Facebook and Google in particular have been basically stealing advertising revenue that used to finance responsible local community independent news. So at the same time that they're, pushing this vile information, this irresponsible content that's driving a lot of the social unrest, they're also stripping away revenue that legitimate sources of media need to function and keep journalists on the beat. So it's a twofold problem. And when you think about, the decline of traditional journalism over the past 10 years and how it's been linked with the rise of Facebook and Google, I can't help to feel a real deep fear for the future of our democracy when you think about those two dynamics together. The thing that gives me optimism is there are ways to fix it, and there are a lot of policymakers now who are very focused on trying to find the right ways to fix it. And in fact, there is bipartisan agreement that something needs to be done. We have unprecedented bipartisan antitrust cases against both of those corporations that, if they kind of proceed as we hope they will, would have a big impact. But I think the important thing to note is there is no silver bullet. You have to prevent these corporations from making money off of this type of content as their core business model. And then you have to address the fact that both of them have essentially monopolized advertising markets in general and dominate the internet.
Sarah Miller, her organization is called Freedom from Facebook. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.